صلبوه ولكن شبه لهم.
What I want is where Simon the Cyrene gave the cross back to Jesus. If you give me that verse, I sit down, end of the debate. Simon the Cyrene has the cross. They compelled him to carry it. Where did Simon the Cyrene return the cross back to Jesus? Please, very quickly, if I can get some two. If we read the book of the contradictions again, if we look at the book of John chapter 19, verse 16, it says that Jesus carried the cross himself and was not helped to carry the cross. If we look at the book of Mark chapter 15, verse 21, he says very clearly that Jesus had the cross on him, so this will be Jesus, and he has the beard and all. So Jesus had the cross on him, and he was going, and they found a man who was named Simon the Cyrene, the father of Alexander and Rufus, who was coming from the country. That is what it says. You can open your Bible and confirm. So this man had the cross, Jesus Christ, and this man was coming from the countryside. They compelled, meaning they forced Simon the Cyrene to take, what? The cross. And they took him to a place called, who has the cross now? They compelled this man, Simon the Cyrene. He has the cross, and they took him to a place called Golgotha, the place of the skull. They took him. Singular or plural. You know, English is my fourth language again. They took him, not them. And they crucified him. So the man who was crucified was Simon the Cyrene, and this verse clearly states that. And if you read the three Gospels, if you read the book of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, they clearly tell you that the person who carried the cross is Simon the Cyrene. And the early Christians believed that this was the person who was crucified. And I quoted to you one of the earliest fathers who said that the people who witnessed this said, thank you very much, the people who witnessed this said that Jesus, it's not Jesus, but somebody who looks like him. My challenge to Pastor Mike, if we have a single verse where Simon the Cyrene gave back the cross back to Jesus, then the challenge still stands. 5,000 rand, and I sit down, and it's end of the debate. That's my time. Thank you very much.
Commenting on that. You had said that Jesus carried his cross alone. I'm just wondering if you can provide the verse for that.
Okay, 19:16, please.
19.
The book of John.
All right, John chapter 19 and 16 says, Then delivered he him therefore unto them to be crucified, and they took Jesus and led him away.
Can you continue?
Yeah, verse 17, And he, bearing his cross, went forth into a place called the place of the skull, which is called in the Hebrew Golgotha.
So Jesus, can I comment? So Jesus is carrying his cross to the place called Golgotha, and my 5,000 rand still remains in my pocket, because I said, if Simon the Cyrene actually carried the cross, which John does not mention, there's no mention of this. John says, carrying the cross by himself. He went to a place called Golgotha, the place of the skull. If we read the book of Mark and the book of Luke and Matthew, for example, Mark 15, verse 21, it says that it is Simon of Cyrene who was compelled to carry the cross, and he did carry the cross to a place called Golgotha. So we can't have it both ways. Who carried the cross? Is it Simon? Is Mark right? Or is John right? We have to believe in one. We can't have it both ways. And
as I read it in John 20, verse 17, Jesus, bearing his cross, went forth into a place called the place of the skull. It doesn't say that he carried it alone. And John he doesn't say that Simon wasn't involved. John is simply telling us that Jesus carried his cross to Mount Calvary. So I do believe Simon came in later. Both things are true. Jesus did carry his cross. And that's why I read what I read in Luke, that Simon, he carried it after him. So Jesus could be carrying it and Simon at the same time.
So when English says bearing his own cross and carrying the cross all by himself.
It was his cross in the beginning. He carried it alone. And then later, as he struggled, Simon would have been compelled.
So it doesn't say that. That's something you're adding on the Bible. And we know what the book of Revelation says about adding things, your own things in the Bible.
Thank you, guys. That's the end of this round. Round of applause.
قل يا أهل الكتاب لا تغلوا في دينكم غير الحق ولا تتبعوا أهواء قوم قد ضلوا من قبل وأضلوا كثيرا وضلوا عن سواء السبيل.